So this is going to be a video on what I'm calling the legends of CTT. So CTT is the national governing body for time trialling within the UK. The organisation's been around for a very long time, and each era obviously has its best riders. Going to kind of be focusing on a certain few riders from the last decade or so. With the advent of this site called Spin Data and obviously Strava, people uploading rides able to see their data. It's a lot easier to compare compare this last 8 years or so, whereas before that, yes, we see the times that these people did, but courses change, and if there's not much data other than the time, it's kind of hard to compare. So riders from the past, Matt Brockrell, Michael Hutchinson, and before that, Graham Obery, Chris Boardman, you could say, they're the GOAT, but it's quite hard to compare, whereas the last 10 years or so, it's a lot easier to do that. Like I was saying, there's this site called Spin Data we have in the UK, which is a fantastic comparison tool. Riders just before Spin Data came along, so Alex Dowsett was known, obviously had a very, very, very impressive World Tour career, but he was known for liking his local time trial, and in 2014 and 2016, for example, he broke the competition record, which is the fastest known time over a distance for 10 and 25 miles. And obviously doing some good power. Thankfully those rides are uploaded to Strava, so you can have a gander at them. But this was just before Spin Data, so Spin Data came around in 2017, so he continued competing, but you don't have that comparative data to evaluate riders against each other. Same with some other riders. Hamish Bond, who was a New Zealand rower who came across to the UK and had a good stint at time trialling. You look in the top all-time list, you'll see these names. James Gullen, British pro cyclist, who only one of two riders ever to go sub 17 minutes for a 10 miler. Harry Tamfield, ex-pro cyclist, third on the all-time list for a 10 miler. Harry competed a bit late, continued competing, but kind of not as much compared to the other riders that I'm going to be focusing on. So the first year of Spin Data, so 2017, there was a standout rider, I'd say. He kind of won everything. So he'd started his track career, and he won the IP, the TP, and the Kilo, and then he went on to the CTT champs as well, won the 10, 25, 50 and circuit champs. So kind of won everything this year, so I'd say he was definitely the best rider. That's obviously Dan Bigham, who went on to have a fantastic career on the track primarily, and kind of see that he got his start in CTT doing stuff out on the road, but then he found the track in 2017 and 2018 and really shifted towards that, because obviously physiologically it seemed to have suited him a lot more, doing the shorter efforts, though he obviously broke the UK and world hour record, so still does have that endurance engine. Cycling is always going to be an endurance sport, even for the IP. Found his knack on the track and really focused on that, and very successful as a result of that, with winning medals at the European champs, world champs, and second at the Olympics in 2024 for the team pursuit. So still you'll find him on the all-time list for the different distances in the UK time trials. So very impressive PB. Over 10 miles, again, same in his 25 and his 50, even though he clearly wasn't a fan of the 50, winning the Kilo and the 50-mile champs in a single year. That's kind of unheard of. But yeah, 2017, kind of found out that Dan pretty much swept the whole thing. 2018, we saw another rider come to the fray who was kind of extremely dominant. This was a Polish rider called Marcin. Pro road career, primarily racing in the UK. Polish national ITT champion, so got a big engine, and he found he enjoyed the UK time trialling scene, and smashed it up for a good couple of years and set all the competition records. So his most notorious one is at the ski slope in Wales. So set a good time there and was relatively local to it, so just kept hammering away at the course, and that's a still standing course record for 25 miles at just under 43 minutes. Still the holder of the fastest ever 10 miler, which is on the old V718. 16:35 is just absolutely nuts, and unfortunately there's no Strava file for that, so don't know what sort of power he did. If his 4:30 is accurate for a 25 miler, I'd assume he'd be doing at least 4:60 for the 10, and that's kind of like Tarling sort of power. If you ever look at Josh Tarling's last public ride on Strava, That was a local 10 miler he did, and he did about 460 watts. So I wouldn't be surprised if Marcin did the same. So yeah, looking at his PBs when he stopped time trialing and went back to Poland, these were the four competition records, and these stood from 2016 to 2018 all the way until 2024, until another rider came along and managed to claim the record for themselves. That rider being John Archibald, who last year, 2024, he did the 100-mile champs, first time doing a 100-miler, breaks the competition record. And then then this season he was able to break Marcin's long-standing record for the 50-miler. So Marcin's still got his 10 in his 25, but with the return of the ski slope, that might be going in the next few years. But yeah, John, fantastic career, some high-level road racing as well, but primarily within the TTs, so Commonwealth Games, Worlds ITT even, and he was a part of the KGF/Hube Watt Bike trade team that competed at the UCI World Cups and shook the scene up a hell of a lot and got some fantastic results. So John's had a fantastic career on the track, but out on the road seems to be where he thrived, I'd say, whereas Dan really thrived when it came to the track. Some very impressive seasons over the years. So 2020, the only man who could beat him was Dan essentially. I've got a table of matchups which is quite interesting. It seems like every single championships John enters, 2018 onwards, he's always the man that comes out on top. Now our fourth rider, Chris Fennel, he was primarily a CTT focused rider, so just focused on the domestic time trialling. Probably could have had a career on the road. I mean, looking back at his BC results, he actually had a fantastic year. First year under 23, he had a really strong season, and then after that, for whatever reason, decided he was going to focus on the time trialling, and then a couple of years later, it took him a while to pick up steam with it, but once he did, he was definitely one of the top riders in the UK, and basically won everything apart from when it would come to a national championships and he'd have a head-to-head against one of the big three that I've already mentioned, and then it's a it's a tall order to overcome Dan, John or Marcin in a national championships, but still a very formidable rider you'll find on the all-time list. Very respectable PBs. One of the most impressive to me is his 25-mile PB of just over 44 minutes. So if you look at the all-time list, pretty much all of them are set on this course in Wales. The R25 3H or 3L was the previous version. This 44.10 is, I believe, the second fastest of all time. It was set on a pancake flat course in Cambridge. It's a very fast course. I've ridden it myself, but it doesn't have the massive gift hill to start out with. So power data from it, he did 395 watts. So these are kind of the best power data I've found for different distances. So 15-20 watts down on his best, and sets the fastest flat 25 miler ever, which is one of the standout performances, I'd say. So this is a table of matchups. I mentioned that in 2017 Dan won everything, but there was only 2 times that he actually faced off against the other riders within these big 4 that I'm calling them. So that was the national 10 and the national 25, which is actually, John was clearly still finding his footing, and so Dan won those championships, and John was just outside the podium for them. But then kind of next year, John got his first win, and he was didn't really stop after that. 2018, Dan obviously didn't have the best time of it. Dan didn't have a great year in 2018 on the road, and I'm assuming that's because he really found his focus on the track and nailed in on that, and quite rightly so. But yeah, 2018 we had that matchup at the 10 where John went from being outside the rostrum to winning the thing and beating Marcin, who held all the competition records at the time. But John not competing at the 25 or the 50, so Marcin, the most consistent rider in the country, was able to win that. And then we had the new challenger. So 2017, John was kind of a top rider, but not quite at the top. And then 2018, we saw that Chris kind of came onto the scene in a similar sort of way, 6th at the championships behind Marcin. Another champs in 2018, circuit champs, which is, I think Dan's mentioned that it's kind of his favourite. It's a more technical course a lot of the time, up and down. It's a more difficult one to pace rather than just a pancake flat drag strip. And managed to overcome John for that, but did the same in the CTT Classic Series the next year, which is a similar sort of style of race where it's like a sporting time trial course where he managed to beat John, but then after that, I mean, he beat him at the Watch Shop 25 miler last year, but then other than that, I don't think John really hasn't lost. Again, we saw Marcin going up against Chris, and Chris stepped up his level in 2019 to be second behind Marcin. But unfortunately, like Marcin, of these riders, we don't have as many matchups. 3 matchups against Chris, 1 matchup against Dan and John, and that's it. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see if John would continue coming out on top if Marcin continued racing a bit more. But yeah, from here, Chris was basically winning everything. But then when John did turn up to a championships, he would come out on top. And 2020 National 25, I mean, John wins by 50 seconds to Dan, but Chris is only 6 seconds behind Dan. So yeah, he was a very formidable rider, always got close. 2021 25 miler, he's 21 seconds off John. So he was always the bridesmaid in a sense, like not quite there, just John just too good, you know. This is another table I've got, just highlighting the winners from 2017 onwards. So if you notice the DB in blue, the JA in red, CF in yellow, and MB in green. So that's our big 4. So these are kind of all the championships they won. So in 2017, you can see that Dan won basically everything. 2018, Marcin won everything. 2019, Marcin won everything, but didn't have those matchups against from the previous matchups page. We didn't really have those matchups, unfortunately, of one of the other big riders. Well, Chris wasn't quite in his top form, and John and Dan didn't show up. 2020, John decided to do quite a few of them and won them unsurprisingly. And then 2021, 2022, Chris Fennel, he basically won absolutely everything until John would show up. So in 2021, John showed up to the National 25 and managed to beat him. 2022, John basically didn't do any CTT race all year. He was doing big races like the Commonwealth Games, so obviously his form was fantastic, but would show up and then knock Chris off the podium. And that was the last season for Chris. And Dan competes sparingly, but he's not in the form he was. But fortunately, John still competes still really likes competing. So 2024, he competed at pretty much all the championships. Of course, managed to win them all, and then he's done a couple of championships this year that he managed to take the win at. If we look at the spin data from Chris Fennel, like I say, he basically won every single event apart from when John would show up. So it's always the bridesmaid when it came to that big showdown. So first 1 second, and it's the exact same in 2021, but this time for the National 25 where John showed up to manage to get the better in. But look at that win streak, and then just a single one, you know, so consistent. But yeah, John's just always seems to come out on top, and that's what I've kind of found from the comparisons. Like after 2018, when it came to the one-on-one matchups, John seemed to be the rider that consistently came out on top. But yeah, all fantastic riders in their own right. You'll find them all on the all-time list, and for good reasons. And they've all got many a national championship to their name. Nice little insight as to some of the top domestic CTT riders over the years.